So let's talk about perimenopause and weight gain. This is a big issue for a lot of women. Why do we start to gain more weight, especially around the tummy area during this phase of life? Well, the first thing to note is that weight gain as we get older is normal because, first of all, most people start to move less as they get older. So they're not as active as they were in their 30s, 40s, whatever, as they get older. And if you still keep eating in the same way, but your activity levels decrease, then you're going to put on weight. The other reason why you might gain weight, apart from perimenopause, menopause, is also because as we age, we start to lose muscle mass. The more muscle we have, the more calories our body needs to exist, to just be. Therefore, if we have less muscle mass, we're going to obviously not be using as many calories when we're at rest or when we're doing anything. So what that means is that, again, if we do not adjust how we're eating and we still keep eating the same way we've always eaten, then we might start to gain weight. But let's talk about perimenopause and weight gain. There are signs that there's evidence, should I say, that many women gain weight around perimenopause stroke menopause. The reason for this is that we have the hormonal shift that's happening in the body. So basically our body is starting to produce less estrogen and progesterone, which are two very, very important hormones, which more or less regulate a lot of the stuff that goes on in our bodies as women. So when these hormones start to decrease, other hormones in the body also start to decrease, and it affects how the body functions. So we are more likely to put on weight during this time when we have a lot of hormonal imbalances. The other issue is that because perimenopause also affects other things, like we might not be sleeping well, we might be tired a lot, we might be fatigued, then we may end up finding that we're eating more. And of course, if we're not moving more, then that weight gain is going to be accelerated. In particular, women find that they gain weight around the stomach area. And many women say to me that I haven't changed anything. I eat the same thing. I exercise in the same way, but yet I gain this weight. And whereas, tweaking my exercise or tweaking my food a bit normally would have resulted in the weight going, this time I cannot shift the weight. The reason we cannot shift the weight is that we have a lot of stress hormones. For example, cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which is running around our system, especially when we're in this perimenopausal, menopausal stage. And when we have too much cortisol, the feels like it needs to store fat. It feels like it's under pressure. There's a danger element. So it stores more fat, and usually it's around the abdomen. So there are a multitude of reasons, as you can see, why you might start to put on weight around the stomach. Perimenopause is one of them because of the shift in hormones. A lack of activity, maybe you're doing less activity and still eating the same foods. Also, you've lost muscle mass as you've gotten older. And finally, the presence of stress hormones as we go into perimenopause, stroke menopause, and we start to not function properly. We're not sleeping properly. We're not eating properly. All of these things affect our hormones. So can we do anything about it? The answer to that is yes. It requires a bit of tweaking, but I don't want people to feel like you cannot stay at a healthy weight during perimenopause. You can. It just requires a bit more work and attention. And one of the things you have to be immediately aware of is that as you move from, say, 30 to 40 or 40 to 50, the amount of calories your body needs to stay alive is less. Every year, probably every 3-4 years, your calorie requirements for staying alive, what we call the basal metabolic rate, drops. So let's say in your 40s, you needed, I don't know, I'm just going to throw a number, 1400 calories. That's your basal metabolic rate. When you get to your 50s, that number may have dropped by 200. So what that means is that you cannot eat the same way that you were eating in your 40s. You would end up putting on weight gradually. There are ways to tackle this. One of them is to change the way you eat, to reduce your calories, and also to exercise more. One of the things that I've found that works the best is not to try to do too much, because what we don't want to do is put the body under more stress. The body is already stressed enough. It's dealing with the lack of estrogen and progesterone. It's dealing with cortisol and a lot of stress hormones. And then we don't want to put the burden of a very, a difficult diet that's going to stress us out even more. So one of the things that I think is very important is that you tackle this a little bit at a time. One of the first things you can do is to tweak what you're eating. Try to reduce the processed foods and the empty calorie foods. Foods that you eat and they are high in calories, but they don't give you anything. Like, for example, if you have a donut is 200, 250 calories. It's empty calories. It's sugar, it's processed sugar, it's additives, it's, sweeteners. It's not good for you in any way. And that is already 250 calories out of your, calorie intake. So you need to think carefully about the choices you make in terms of food. Dropping your calorie intake by 200 to 300 is probably a good thing to start with, because most people will need to have that drop because your basal metabolic rate would have dropped anyway. So tweaking your diet, getting rid of empty calories, thinking about things like alcohol, which can, add up in calories, especially if you have things like cocktails. They're very high in calories, high in sugar. Thinking about the amount of sweets and sugary foods that you eat. Thinking about fizzy drinks. These are things that have a lot of calories. So just reducing things like that, or cutting them out of your diet, or only having them once in a while, means that you might be able to get rid of the extra 200 or 300 calories. The other thing is changing what you eat, eating more lean meats, more protein sources. And this is important for many reasons. I'm going to do a separate video about, the nutrition and the things that are important. Having more protein as we hit perimenopause is very important, because we want to retain muscle mass, and protein helps us build muscle. Also, protein keeps you fuller for longer. So instead of eating refined carb like a pasta or something, which will just take your blood sugar up, bring it back down, and then you're hungry again, eat something like fish with veg, or chicken with veg. Things like that will keep you fuller for longer, and you'll end up not eating as many calories. Drinking a lot of water is also helpful, because that helps to stave off hunger. Sometimes we think we're hungry, but we're not hungry, we're thirsty. So drinking more water, making sure you drink at least a liter to a liter and a half a day, is good practice. Exercise, very, very important. You don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to do something extreme. In fact, during perimenopause, we really should avoid extreme exercise, because that stresses the body and brings more cortisol into the body, which we don't want. Walking is one of the best things you can do, and one of the things I would always advise when you eat before you hit perimenopause, but if you haven't been doing it before perimenopause, learn to walk every day. Walking, it covers so many areas: mental health, physical health, emotional health, everything. So walking is very good, and because it's weight bearing, it's also good for retaining muscle, as I mentioned earlier. So just try to implement things that are easy for you, because at the end of the day, it has to work for you. So look for things that are easy to implement. Walking is always the first one, because it's free. You can do it anytime. Everybody can do it, right? But being aware that you have to move more. You have to be active. Your body is designed to move. And as we age, in particular, women, as we go into perimenopause, we cannot afford to not move. We need to improve mobility. We need to be stronger. We need to improve bone density. So moving is so, so important. Exercise is important. It doesn't have to be extreme. You don't need to go to a gym. You can find something you enjoy, whether you can do it at home, or you do it with a group of people, or you do go to a gym. But, putting that in, combined with the less, having fewer calories, as I said, 200-300, just tweak that a bit. Eating the right kinds of foods, that will all help you to maintain a good weight, whatever weight you're trying to maintain, and also to keep off those extra fat around the middle that we don't really want. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Take care. Speak to you soon.